of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. I'd like to continue to outline a few rules to follow. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. When you intervene, please make sure that your language channel is set to the language that you wish to speak, not the floor. This is very important. It will reduce the number of times we need to stop because of it. The interpretation is inaudible for our participants. It will maximize the time we spend exchanging with each other. With a nod, could our witnesses let us know that you understand how this all works? So just the witnesses, if you can just kind of nod or wave your hand that you all got that. Great. It'll work fine. Also, before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you're ready to speak, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. Alors, assurez-vous que votre micro est éteint lorsque vous ne parlez pas.
That your micro.
Et je vais...
When you are not talking. I would like to welcome our witnesses for today's meeting, and notably the Honorable Marco Medencino, Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship. So welcome to you, Minister Medencino. We're very glad that you have taken the time to speak to the committee today.
Mr. Minister, we'll give you 7 minutes to give us an opening statement on whatever the topic is. To I guess today we're interested in temporary foreign workers, but also human resource on farm in general. So go ahead, Mr. Minister. It's yours for 7 minutes. Thank you. You have to unmute, Minister. There you go.
It's got to happen at least once every meeting.
There you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the committee, good afternoon. I also want to thank you for the opportunity to offer these remarks and to answer your questions about the significant contributions of temporary foreign workers on our farms, at our processing plants, and at all points in Canada's food supply chain. This often overlooked group of migrant workers has long served to ensure that Canadians may continue to enjoy food that is safe, healthy, and affordable. That remains especially true today as we continue to confront COVID-19. Indeed, the work that we are doing at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada has been a vital lifeline to our food security, healthcare system, and our economy as we continue to effectively manage this global pandemic and flatten the curve. But before I go any further, I want to first express our ongoing gratitude to healthcare workers, as well as Canadian farmers, food business leaders, and workers, both domestic and from abroad, for everything that you are doing to keep us healthy and to preserve access to high quality food at our grocery stores and kitchen tables. We say thank you, merci. Following the outbreak, my department has played a critically important role in the Government of Canada's response to COVID-19. Today, I want to highlight the special measures we have put into place to support temporary foreign workers, farmers, and industry leaders to sustain Canada's food security. Our work in this area is done in close collaboration with federal branches, which are led by my ministerial colleagues at Agriculture, Employment and Social Development Canada, and Fisheries and Oceans. To help contain the spread of COVID-19, the federal government introduced travel restrictions at the border with targeted exemptions for essential travel that includes temporary foreign workers. IRCC is principally responsible for the issuance of work permits to temporary foreign workers and the supporting regulatory framework, which is under my purview through the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations. Depuis le début de la crise, le gouvernement a donné la priorité aux...
Since the beginning of this crisis, we have provided conditions for workers in essential areas such as agriculture and agri-food in order to protect our commercial trade and to assure food for all Canadians. We have put in an exemption for travel into Canada for these temporary workers in order that our farms and our processing facilities can continue to answer to Canadian needs. In April, almost 22,000 workers from abroad, temporary foreign workers, a ride on charter flights to work in our agri and agri-food industries. While we have facilitated the entry of these temporary foreign workers in Canada, other measures and support are required in order to assist this program. The government has offered other forms of support. On the 13th of April, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada has announced $50 million to assist all workers in the production and processing of those elements in order to supply the supply chain. Of course, they must respect the 14-day quarantine period on arrival in Canada.
We're also making better use of the workers who are already here. We've introduced additional strategies to address status restoration and to reduce timelines for documentation. On May 12, my department announced a new public policy that cuts the time that it takes for temporary foreign workers to start a new job from 10 weeks or more down to 10 days or less. This will allow temporary workers who are already in Canada with an employer-specific work permit to quickly change jobs when they find a new one. It's a win-win situation. Our government is working very closely with employers of temporary foreign workers to ensure the 14-day quarantine period is respected once workers arrive in Canada, and appropriate accommodations and provisions made available to allow workers to do their important works in planting and seeding. To help enforce these new requirements across the board, a package of regulations came into force on April 20th. Employers have a responsibility for the health of their workers as well as to public health generally. Employer associations continue to work collaboratively with the government to figure out how they can help fulfill both of these objectives. In addition to the measures we're taking in response to the immediate effects of COVID-19, we continue to plan for the future. Immigration is an enduring value that I believe in and that I trust Canadians believe in too, and we will see that for a long time after COVID-19 is behind us. Just like last week, IRCC opened applications under the Agri-Food pilot. Over the last several years, industries such as meat processing, mushroom and greenhouse production, and livestock raising have experienced ongoing challenges in finding and keeping employees. The Agri-Food pilot aims to attract and retain workers in these industries by providing them with an opportunity to become permanent residents. As we work to reinvigorate our economy after the pandemic, these workers will play an important part in getting Canada back to business. This is a 3-year pilot that will test an approach to help employers in these areas fill ongoing labor needs for full-time, year-round work. It will provide a pathway to permanent residence for many temporary foreign workers already in Canada. A total of 2,750 applications will be accepted annually throughout the pilot, which applies primarily to people who are already here. The success of our Canadian farmers and food processors depends on their ability to recruit and retain the workforce that they need. This pilot will help to ensure that farmers and processors have the much needed skills, experience, and labor so we can continue to strengthen Canada's food security, grow our economy, and improve our living standards for all of Canada. Mr. Chair, temporary foreign workers are of vital importance to our food security and our economy. They are critical to the success of our farms and our hospitals. And this is why we have made the exceptions to the travel restrictions and why we continue to work with our partners provincially and in the sector right across with farmers, doctors, and others to ensure they have the support they need. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, and I'm now happy to take your questions. Merci.
English. Thank you very much, Minister, for your opening statement. And we will now, so before I go any further, I just wanted to mention also the personnel from immigration. We have Marion Campbell-Jarvis, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Program Policy. We have Louis Dumas, Acting Associate Assistant, Deputy Minister, Operations. Matt de Vliger, Director General, Immigration. And from the Department of Employment and Social Development, we also have Jonathan Wallace, Director General, Temporary Foreign Worker Program. Welcome to all of you. And they will also remain for the second hour, I understand, to answer further questions. So with that, we shall commence our question round, and we'll start with Ms. Leanne Rood for up to 6 minutes. Ms. Rood, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing before us today. Minister, I've heard from many farmers in my riding, and and they're having some difficulties with some of the audits that are being done. You know, a farmer's greatest fear right now is not the weather. A fruit and vegetable farmer's greatest fear right now is an audit by the integrity branch. And I have heard some examples from different farmers, one being a phone call at 7:45 in the morning asking her that she has to talk to this auditor right now, and if she doesn't, then you know, she could fail her audit. And an hour and a half of time is being spent on the phone, and numerous photos and videos, and of course we want to make sure that the quarantine is safe and is following the health guidelines. Another example of a farmer, a pregnant woman, was asked to go into a quarantine bunkhouse with quarantine people in there to carry out the audit and provide photos and videos to the auditor that the social distancing was happening. So I'm just wondering, Minister, you know, what is the guidelines that these auditors have to carry out these audits, and, you know, showing very little kindness and compassion in some of these instances is not going very far. And can you give us an idea of how many audits are happening and what the direction is on these audits?
Well, first, I want to thank you for the question through you, Mr. Chair, to my honourable colleague, and to echo the concerns that we have not only for the farmers, but for the officials who are supporting farmers in ensuring that we have safe workplaces. And just to underscore that everyone has a right to work in a safe and healthy workplace. That is one of the reasons why we have put into place some of the standards under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to ensure that when workers show up and inspectors show up, that they can feel confident that they're working in a health and secure place. And I had expressed previously last week my profound concern when we have heard about some of the outbreaks which have occurred. And I think that we need to be sure that we are looking into the causes of those, but without in any way compromising the safety and the security of those who are conducting those audits and those inspections. And we will continue to work very closely with the provinces, who I'm sure my honourable colleague knows have the primary line of jurisdiction to ensure that occupational health and safety is being upheld on our farms and at our food and processing plants.
Thank you. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, Minister. We've heard some numbers coming out from the Minister of Agriculture, I believe it was last week, with regard to the number of workers that have arrived here in Canada. Some of the numbers were saying that 90% of temporary foreign workers were here. However, that's not what I'm hearing from industry. I'm hearing from industry, for instance, on the seasonal agriculture worker program, that we've only received about 78% of the workers that should have been here at this point. And I understand in BC it might be 50%. I know it's somewhere around the same in Quebec. So I'm just wondering, you know, what number should we believe, and can you give the committee a definitive numbers for April, and perhaps what the outlook is as far as May and June and beyond for workers arriving?
So I'm going to try and break that down, and want to give you as accurate data as I can, and certainly happy to continue this conversation after the committee appearance. But in round terms, we currently have arrived in Canada for this year approximately 30,000 agricultural workers, which does break down along the seasonal agricultural work program, as well as the broader family of workers who are providing support to our farms. Under the seasonal agricultural work program, we have approved 18,000 temporary foreign work permits, of which 15,000 have already arrived and are starting the important work of planting and seeding. And we know that there are more coming. And this is work that not only me, but my colleagues, as I say, at Agriculture, as well as Employment and Social Development Services Canada, are continuing, as well as at Global Affairs Canada, to ensure that we are facilitating the safe and orderly arrival of temporary foreign workers that are abroad. And one of the ways that my department is accelerating that process is by setting up a dedicated team, really reducing the period of time to ensure that those approvals are coming within 10 days or less, and ensuring that the mandatory isolation periods are in place so that we're keeping farms and our food security safe.
Thank you. Now, I've had the opportunity to talk with some folks from the Seasonal Agriculture Worker Program, and I know, I believe they were speaking perhaps with yourself. I know Minister Bibo as well, and they've put a proposal before you last week with regard to resolving some of the backlogs in the industry moving forward. And I believe this policy was trying to streamline with labor market analysis. So they were asking that those who requested or approved in 2020 on their labor market impact and assessment applications to renew their work visa for 2020 based on the fact that their permit was granted in 2019. Now, I understand there were some changes to the program, and as of right now, the worker is supposed to pay the $155 visa processing fee, but that used to be done at the employer level, and then they would just deduct it at a later date. So I'm just wondering if you've seen that proposal and where you are on this proposal to make the process more streamlined.
I'm certainly familiar with both the proposal to look at ways of renewing visas for a 2-year term as opposed to just the one, as well as looking at ways to create additional flexibility around how fees are paid, and had a great call with a number of farmers and industry leaders earlier this week where we developed a little bit on both of those subjects. I will say that that those discussions are ongoing, but in the short term, based on the numbers that I just read into the record regarding our progress in April, as well as the progress that we're making in May, I do believe that we are seeing a significant number of temporary foreign workers here arrive in a timely, safe, and orderly fashion. And that is because, as I said, we've stood up a dedicated team. We are fast-tracking approval. And most importantly, and I think this gets to the gist of your question, we have introduced some additional work flexibility. So if you're here and you're tied to a specific job or an employer and you've lost that job because of COVID-19, you're now able to stay in Canada on implied status and take that new job prior to the official approval, just as a means of filling those labor gaps, which we know exist every year. So I thank you for that question.
Thank you, Minister. We'll go to the next question to Mr. Drouin for 6 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Drouin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, Mr. Chair, I want to thank the Minister for being in front of us today. I know he's no stranger to agriculture. If we go back about 4 or 5 years, I briefed him quickly on a milk protein issue, and he delivered flawlessly to our caucus at the time. So I do want to thank him for that. And then here we are 5 years later discussing agriculture and the importance of temporary foreign workers. And Mr. Mendicino, all MPs reached out to you at the beginning of this. I can't believe it's already been 2 months, but how important was it to hear and to get a proper solution from Temporary Foreign Worker Solutions for Canada so we can grow our food?
I want to begin by thanking my honorable colleague, both for the compliments as well as his work and his advocacy when it comes to supporting our farmers. I know it's something that he's very passionate about, as well as his dedication in the community. And he's quite right that at the outset of the break, when we were examining ways on which we could limit the spread of COVID-19, we did take a look at our borders, and it quickly became clear that we needed to establish a lifeline for our temporary foreign workers, and particularly those who come to work on our farms, who are here year in and year out, who've developed a close relationship with the farmers who employ them, with their co-workers, and as I've said before, who have established a deep-rooted connection to Canada. And we owe them a debt of gratitude, because without them, those labor shortages would continue to exist. So that was the principal rationale for creating a targeted exemptions regime, which does ensure that they are able to arrive in Canada, but like everyone else, they have to abide by the 14-day isolation period. And we have provided some additional support to farmers so that they've got the resources they need to accommodate for physical distancing and isolation where necessary. So could not agree more with the question.
And Mr. Chair, through you, I think it's important, Minister, that the additional dollars that we have provided for the cost of quarantine measures, why is it so important to ensure that we have a safe workplace and making sure that, you know, if there is an issue, that we can catch it earlier? And I know Ms. Rood talked about audits, and I know it's never fun. I have served my first year as an MP. I got audited by CRA, so we are never protected. It can be a stressful time. But those additional dollars, how did that policy come forward for, I believe it's up to $1,500 per worker?
Well, first, I'm glad to see you survived the audit and you're still here among us. But I would say that, yes, you're quite right that the $1,500 per temporary foreign worker benefit, which is distributed through a $50 million envelope, which went directly to farmers for this purpose, does ensure or help to ensure that workplaces and farms and processing plants are safe. And this was in direct response to the feedback that we heard both provincially as well as among farmers and industry leaders. So we looked at and are continuing to look at ways to provide that support. And that was something that was acknowledged on my call earlier this week with stakeholders.
Thank you for that response. And in your opening remarks, you've mentioned, you've briefly touched on the Agri-Food pilot. And I know this is something that was not necessarily COVID-19 related, but you still were able to, your department was still able to launch this during this pandemic. But how now more than ever, it's so important to ensure that our meat packing plants or our slaughterhouses are filled with folks who can do that work. Can you explain to this committee how your department was still able to stay on a timeline to get this launched?
Well, it allows me to express my gratitude to our public servants at IRCC who have really, I think, risen to the challenge by creating alternative processes, by moving more into the digital realm, like all of us are, and like we are right across government and in life. And as a result, we were able to launch the Agri-Food pilot, which was a commitment that we had made because we wanted to recognize not only the contributions that temporary workers are providing on our farms, but as I said earlier, the connection that they develop to Canada and to their communities over a period of time. And what I've heard from farmers, and I'm sure that my honorable colleague is familiar with this too, as well as members of the community, is that there is a relationship that develops over a number of years. And that because of that relationship, we want to acknowledge the work, the effort, the energy that is expended to help Canadians continue to get access to safe and affordable food by providing them with a pathway to permanent residence. And very clear, it's set out, it's straightforward. There will be a $2,750 allocation each year for the next 3 years. And we're going to make sure that this is something that will contribute to the long-term success by providing a way for them to become permanent residents as well as to continue to contribute to food security for all Canadians.
Thank you, Minister. I think I'm almost out of time here. I see the chair staring at me funny here.
Just unmute and interpretation English. Thank you, Francis. We had a few seconds, but I went a little bit extra on Ms. Rood. Just want to my colleagues, when you're, I don't know if you're timing your time, but when we get close to 30 seconds, I may tell you that you have to kind of cut your questions because it'll take time off somebody else down the line. So just to remind you. Okay, our next, le prochain, Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron, you have 6 minutes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, don't worry, I'm going to check my time. So I'm going to start by greeting the witnesses who are present, and I'd like to thank them of their presence. Minister, Ms. Martinez-Pereda, with whom I have very frequent contact, and I really appreciate our collaboration. But it doesn't mean that I don't have any criticism to express, or maybe questions. I would call them constructive questions, maybe. Minister, when you made the announcement of the financial support for $1,500 per foreign worker for the quarantine period, well, we thought that this should have been, paid by the state. But since it was not, so you offered people from the agricultural sector $1,500, which was interpreted by everyone at the time as being an automatic, kind of a lump sum of $1,500 per foreign worker to help them to support their workers. But I'd like to draw your attention that in the agricultural world, they are the only ones that have to pay their workers during the pandemic. So you have to compensate for that. You have also flight tickets that are also more expensive. So now I hear some feedback from the various farmers. They have to fill in forms. They have to show the expenses, and that it's a maximum of $1,500 instead of what it was before. So can you explain to us why it has been changed? And can you ensure us that we at least get 1,500 per worker? Can you hear me? There's no sound. Yes, Mr. Medencino, did you hear the question?
Est-ce qu'on a bien entendu ma question?
Did you hear my question? Yes. Yes, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you for the question, and thank you also for your cooperation with my parliamentary secretary, who was also with us this morning. And concerning your question, we have created a process which is more efficient, which was providing more support to farmers, the amount that you mentioned. And this money is for the temporary foreign workers. And yes, the employer has to pay for their fees. But we were looking for new solutions. We're looking for new ways and means to support the temporary foreign workers and to also support our farmers. As I said, we have a dedicated team that is really concentrating on this program. It is so essential, and we'll continue to cooperate with you and with our partners. Mr. Jolin Barret, who is a colleague from Quebec, and I also work with him every week. And this collaboration will continue. Yes, thank you, Minister. But speaking about the $1,500 that are being paid, this is what I would like to concentrate. Can you guarantee that each employer, each farmer, every worker in the agri-food sector who receive foreign workers and who have this huge responsibility to organize a quarantine, and that has very often lost also some money, are they going to receive the whole $1,500 without much red tape? They don't have time. They have to be in the fields right now. Yes, that's really the whole purpose of the program. So this is to provide the support to the farmers and also for the benefit of the workers. So if there are cases where there is a problem, where there's an issue, please do contact my office and we can try to look at it.
I understand that there won't be too much paperwork required, because that reassures me. That's not what I heard. It's important. The assistance is minimal. And for the pilot project for the permanent residents, it's a good idea. We're happy. But you have some criteria for studies. Can you explain to me for education? Because if the person is a farm worker here and has been for several years, he or she is being asked for the equivalent of a high school degree. Could you tell me why? What's logical behind that?
Pardon, le technologie.
I'm sorry, technological issues. The goal of this requirement is to ensure that there is a bit of academic experience, but the value that is most important is this experience on the farm. So that's still the goal of this pilot project. I'm interrupting you. We don't have a lot of time. I can see that I don't have any more time, but you understand the concern behind my question. Why putting a lot of forms and criteria and prerequisites and conditions? I had a case this morning with the people who have finished their work permit, who have to leave the country. They can't leave. The employer wants to keep them. We're trying to renew their permit. Their permit to stay has to be renewed. And there's some civil servants who are refusing those work permits because this permit was not delivered or renewed. So two things, and we have 5 seconds to answer, but isn't there a way to facilitate that, not require this EIMT, this special permit for this current period until October? Yes, there's a policy to preserve the status of those who already have an expired permit before it's reapproved.
as I said, there is a principle in place that if a worker has an expired visa, that we are undertaking to renew those visas as quickly as we can to allow them to remain in Canada and to find that next job. And that was a policy that we just introduced in the last week and a half.
Thank you, Merci, Monsieur Perron. And now,
Thank you, Mr. Perron.
For up to 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome, Minister, to our committee. Good to see you here to give us an update on how your department is dealing with COVID-19, specifically as it relates to agriculture. I wanted to touch on the Agri-Food pilot program as well, and I think a lot of us welcome the fact that there is a pathway to permanent residency for many of these temporary foreign workers. I'd just like to get your comment, Minister. How do you respond when an organization like the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change raises concerns that the program isn't designed very well for workers, that maybe it gives employers a little bit too much leeway because these workers are very much essential? And when they raise concerns that maybe the education and language testing requirements are a little bit too stringent, how would you respond to some of those concerns that have been raised?
Well, I'd begin by emphasizing, as you did, the significant contribution of migrant workers, particularly when it comes to ensuring food security. And we are always open to having constructive conversations about the way in which we can improve the program and ensure that it's meeting the objective of recognizing those contributions, the value of the work on farms when it comes to food security, by providing a clear way in which they can establish a permanent residency in Canada. And would point out, Mr. McGregor, as you know, this is a 3-year pilot. And so by its very definition, it is an experiment, but one that we feel confident and optimistic about because it is a step in the right direction in acknowledging the importance and the vitality of the work that migrant workers provide.
Yeah, and acknowledging that work, I think COVID-19 has very much laid bare some of the weaknesses that we have in our system, and our agricultural system has a great reliance on temporary foreign workers, and that's obviously a very weak point when governments around the world start to shut their borders, and we've done well, I think, to try and address that. But what I'm interested in, Minister, is going future. What kind of lessons is the government of Canada learning from this, and how will you build resiliency into the system so that when another shock comes, we may not be as in a bad position? Really, the theme is resiliency. What kind of steps do you think you can take to build resiliency into the system so that we can withstand future shocks?
Well, one, by ensuring that we continue to manage our borders and to ensure that we're placing the health and safety of Canadians as our paramount concern, but that we also have the kind of targeted exemptions for temporary workers, migrant workers, who are allowing Canadians to continue to get access to safe and healthy food. This Agri-Food pilot is an initiative that recognizes the relationship between workers year over year to Canada, to support all of those objectives. And I think that the way that we create that resiliency is by continuing to measure our success in this program and to measure our needs within the economy, particularly when it comes to the labor shortages that we see on our farms, the labor shortages that we see among seafood workers, and to leverage the opportunities of those who are abroad, who have the experience, who have the skill set, and who want to come and put their shoulder to the wheel, if you will. So yeah. I'm confident that there are many ways in which we can ensure the long-term resilience of these initiatives.
Yeah, and I think agriculture and agri-food is going to be a big driver of our economic recovery. When I met with the Canadian Food and Beverage Association in February, they were talking a lot about their needs for skilled workers, and they project that Canada will be 65,000 jobs short by the year 2025. So, I think that's a really important part, and it's really related to COVID-19. What incentives is the government going to be putting into place to making sure that we have that skilled labor force, especially as our food processing plants upgrade to a more mechanized place, more automation? You still need those skilled workers to service those machines to ensure they're running on time.
We sure do. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that as we come out of the pandemic, we are concerned as well about Canadians who are unemployed and want to be sure that we're supporting them through this period through a variety of financial assistance programs, which have been well received, but also allowing Canadians to retool and to be able to bounce back and get back to work, because we need to ensure that our economy gets moving again. But where we can't, and where in our economy we continue to see those labor shortages, I just want to assure you and the members of the community, of the committee, I beg your pardon, that the temporary worker program will be there as an important lever. And we will align those shortages to the skills and experience that is abroad, as we have done when it comes to farming, when it comes to food security. And I believe that is something that will be very much part of our ability to recover after we are on the other side of COVID-19.
And just quickly, Minister, in the limited time I have left, what about, can you update the committee on workers who may have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19 and the biometrics requirements? Has your department done anything to ease those potential bottlenecks to ensure that, because some Service Canada centres are closed, the biometrics process and so on, anything you can add just to address those potential bottlenecks?
Yes, thanks very much for the question. And we have looked at ways to create that flexibility, including with regards to biometrics, having regard to the fact that our visa application centers are either closed or at reduced capacity. I just want to emphasize that where those visa application centers are closed, those are decisions that are taken by foreign governments, but we do remain engaged with our service personnel abroad, and we do remain engaged with source countries to really ensure that they are recognizing the importance in the essential sector in our visa application centers, and that's especially true in Mexico.
And
thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. McGregor. Maintenant,
Now we will be going to Mr. Lehoux for the second round, 5 minutes. So go ahead, Mr. Lehoux, 5 minutes.
Monsieur Lehoux.
Mr. Lehoux, are you there?
Est-ce que les techniciens peuvent...
Could the technicians give you a hand? Are you there, Mr. Lehoux? Mr. Lehoux? No, I don't think he's hearing me.
Work with Mr. Lehoux, and we will go to Madame Bessette, et on reviendra à Monsieur Lehoux. Allez-y.
And we'll go back to Mr. Lehoux after. Madame Bessette, please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Mr. Minister. Thank you for being at our committee today. We know how foreign workers are important for our farmers. You just spoke about how many foreign temporary workers we have in the country, but I would like to know what are the challenges in bringing them here? What are the challenges that these people have to face to be able to come here?
I can't hear you.
Merci, Madame Bessette.
Thank you, Madame Bessette, for your question. There's several challenges today. Like I said earlier, there are conditions outside of Canada in other countries that cause the offices to be closed. So we're still addressing the issues with our partners outside of Canada to improve the various processes that occur in those foreign countries. And even here, like I said, we've created a special team whose focus is to approve those requests, those applications in a more timely manner. Today, applications are approved in 10 days or less. We've made a lot of progress, and we will still keep trying to find solutions to greet those foreign temporary workers. Thank you.
Province throughout the country, each has a different landscape in which the COVID pandemic is impacting impacting in a unique fashion. Can you speak to what action have been taken among the provinces and territories through your department to align our country's response to COVID-19 for temporary foreign workers?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for your question. And like I said, I'm working very closely with every partners that we have in the provinces and territories, namely in Quebec, Mr. Jolin Barrin. There are a lot of avenues for cooperation, namely with this foreign temporary workers program. And when we are cooperating with foreign countries, our approach has to be on the same page from province to the federal. So we cooperate to welcome these workers here, and this cooperation will continue.
I'm on the right language. How is the current infrastructure is holding up for those workers, temporary foreign workers?
Sorry, I think I missed part of the question as you were switching the button.
Hold on. Okay, can you hear me? How is the current infrastructure holding up for the temporary foreign workers?
I think if by infrastructure you mean what are the supports in place, they're holding up quite well, and that is because we have provided financial support to farmers. We have provided supports for temporary workers around the conditions of their work to ensure there's a high standard of health and safety. And as I said, we want to ensure that they're getting into Canada as quickly as possible, but without in any way compromising our primary objective to stop the spread of COVID-19 as much as possible. So we've put into place a whole suite of measures to ensure that the temporary workers and the farms on which they are working are very supported.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois qu'il me reste encore peut-être une minute.
Français, par rapport au programme pilote.
Okay, now in French. As for the pilot project, Pathway to Citizenship, it tries to integrate a very specific approach to satisfying the labor shortage, but there's also an assist to immigration. What's the actual end point or objective of this program, and how does it attain that end? The objective of the pilot project, Agri-Food, is to provide a pathway to permanent residency for the temporary foreign worker. And as a pilot project, it recognizes the contribution of this group of workers and the connection between the worker and his relationship to Canada. I'm quite optimistic that we can continue with this pilot.
Who is still having technical problems. We'll go to Mr. Barlow, and I would ask if you could submit somebody else just in case Mr. Lewis from your party, Mr. Barlow. So go ahead, Mr. Barlow, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have Richard's questions here just in case this happens. So I will ask Richard's questions for him, and then hopefully if he's able to jump in, he can.
Sure.
Minister, I'm going to be giving these questions from Mr. Lehu's perspective, but so
it's okay.
Minus the French.
He owes you one.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Lehu sent a letter to your office in February before the pandemic even began with some questions regarding temporary foreign workers, and he never received a response or even an acknowledgement of that letter, which is concerning as a new member of Parliament. And he offered some recommendations on the temporary foreign worker program. Did you receive that letter?
Well, first, I want to say that if we haven't gotten back to him, we will make sure that we get back to him as quickly as possible and acknowledge that it has been a very challenging time for our team and our officials, but we will be sure to get back to him with a response as quickly as possible.
Thank you. You did talk earlier in your presentation regarding some of the numbers and regarding temporary foreign workers coming into Canada. But my colleague, Ms. Rude, did mention Quebec and BC seem to be lagging far behind compared to, Ontario, for example. In Quebec, they're still quite short of the temporary foreign workers who are supposed to be coming into that province. And the numbers that we have seen are closer to around 50%. Is that accurate, and why such a discrepancy?
Well, you're quite right that there are some regional disparities, and we are looking at ways in which we can increase and accelerate the rate of arrival for some of the provinces who are perhaps not as far along, and as you mentioned, British Columbia. But I do think that we have seen good progress in Ontario and Quebec, and one of the ways that I think we're going to pick up speed to facilitate the arrival of temporary workers is by continuing to invest the resources that are necessary in the dedicated team within my own department, but also among a number of other departments like agriculture, as well as Employment and Social Development Services Canada. So we understand there's a challenge there, but we are really expending every effort to get those workers here as quickly as possible.
Mr. Barlow, just to let you know that Mr. Lehoux is back. You want me to switch there, and then you can come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay, Monsieur Lehoux, vous êtes prêt à y aller pour un...
If you're ready to go, you've still got 3 minutes, so go to it. I hope I don't ask the same question that was asked on my behalf. So first of all, good afternoon, Mr. Minister. People in my riding, where we have a lot of processing capacity in agricultural product, and they do use a lot of TFW, temporary foreign workers. And they find that it's fairly complicated to do so. I know an announcement was made yesterday, but could we not try to simplify as much as possible, particularly in a time of COVID-19 pandemic, to maintain their jobs? We're having quite a lot of difficulty in finding people to work in processing plants in particular. Mr. Minister, perhaps you're muted. Look, I'm always prepared to cooperate with you and other members of the House to find solutions, to simplify the process, to speed up the process, and make it as efficient as possible. And if you've been following the announcements that our government has been making on this sector, it is the result of a cooperation between all partners, all participants, and we will definitely continue to consult and to refine the process. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I just want to make myself very clear. We're talking about workers here who are here. They're working in a processing facility, but their visas are expired. So they're afraid of losing their jobs. Are we going to give them the support to maintain their status and stay where they are?
As I said, if their visas have expired, that they are able to stay on implied status and continue to look for new work. And as soon as they get that job offer, they are able to start that work. So, oui, il y a une politique qui sont en place.
Policies are in place to allow this worker who has expired his visa to stay in Canada, to prolong his stay quite legally, and to pick up another contract if it's offered to him. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Mr. Finnegan, do I have another minute?
Split it whichever way you want. So, Mr. Barlow, you've got about 5 minutes for your own time, but I'll leave you the descriptions if you want to continue with Mr. Lehoux or get your 5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I may ask a couple of questions, and then I'll pass it over to Mr. Lehoux if he has a couple of others.
Sure.
Minister, and thank you for getting back to us when we did have questions early on with this program, and I understand that this was sketchy at the beginning if we would be able to offer this labor force to our producers, and I hope you understand now how critical the seasonal ag worker program and temporary foreign worker program is to our food supply. This is a bit off topic, but I just want to kind of put this on your radar and seeing if there's anything that we can do. We've got a lot of agriculture producers in the southern part of many of our ridings who have American borders. And I have ranchers who have cattle on the Alberta side as well as on the Montana side, or some who have grain, and are having a really difficult time going back and forth to check cattle, feed animals, those types of things. Now, I know this isn't necessarily an immigration thing, but speaking with my counterparts in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, we all see agriculture as an essential service, and they are having similar problems as they have that reciprocity. I'm just wondering if it's on your radar or on the government's radar to address this issue, have some sort of a permit or a process where agriculture producers who are an essential service can make that trip back and forth across the border.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Barlow, and as well, it was my pleasure to be able to collaborate with you in the early days of the outbreak to ensure that we were making the strongest possible case to create the exemption for migrant workers who are applying their trade on our farms, and I just want you to know that cooperation will continue. And as a result, I do feel as though the government, and I hope all Canadians truly do appreciate the significant contributions of this class of workers who come from abroad to shore up food security. Thank you for bringing the specific issue to my attention. I think, as you allude to in your question, it's one that I will share with my colleague, Madame Bibeau at Agriculture Canada, as well as Minister Qualtrough at ESDC, and we should continue that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that's not something you could answer, but I just really want to put it on your radar. Is we are having a lot of difficulty with that right now, and if there's some sort of program that or permitting system or something that we can put in place that they are not turned away at the border, coming back or going south. Now to more question that I'm sure you'll be able to answer. We've been having. I know you've put some programs in place for processing. The employees that I have Cargill in my riding, that goes down. That's almost 40% of the processing capacity in Canada, reliant certainly on temporary foreign workers. But any discussions, Minister, with the unions that are employing some of these employees? I think there's an opportunity for us to have a discussion to address some of the misunderstandings with some of the programs and work safety and some of those things that are going on. Is that despite the programs that you're putting in place, the unions are really not allowing those workers to go back to work, or now a stop work order, court injunction for Cargill. Have some of those discussions happen to re-educate or educate the workforce, the unions, Cargill, JBS, to get them all on side to ensure that employees go to work?
Well, as I mentioned, we had a very constructive call earlier this week with a number of stakeholders, and we did talk about the significance and the importance of guaranteeing occupational health and safety on farms and at food processing plants. And as I said in my remarks and throughout the course of today's appearance, everyone has a right to work in a place that is healthy and safe. And I do think there is an opportunity to discuss with some of the leaders in the labor sector exactly what their concerns are. I am generally aware of what those concerns are. And in the meantime, I just want to assure you that that's one of the reasons why we amended the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to set the bar very high, to provide the additional resources to inspectors and auditors to be there as an important guarantee for not only the temporary workers, but all workers who are there to keep our food supply chain going.
Yeah, thank you for that. We certainly, all of us, I think, thank the workers, the food processors who are going to work every single day, and we want to ensure they're safe, but there has to be some sort of continuity that they are going to work. So I'm not sure how much time I have left, Mr. Chair, but I'll maybe pass it over to Mr. Lehoux in case he had some other questions.
Yeah, 15 seconds. It would be a very quick one if you have.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Juste pour les travailleurs.
Well, for these foreign workers, or the Immigrant Pathway to Citizenship program. That's not going to solve all our problems, of course. In my writing, for example, we needed to find a way of making the permitting process a little bit easier to take. These are not temporary workers. These are people who have been here for a while, are experienced, and our agricultural producers need these people. We do depend on them. Yes, I concur with what my colleague has just said. It's a pilot project. It's not a magic solution that's going to solve all the challenges of the sector. But it's an example, by way of a pilot project, where we can progress. It reflects the reality of the situation for these workers in this sector.
For 5 minutes. That'll be our final witness or question. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And I have a couple questions, and I know the chair has a question, so I'll split a couple minutes with him. Thank you, Marco, or Minister Mancino, for appearing today, and it's nice to see you. A couple questions I had, and I know when I took office in 2016, to say it politely, the temporary foreign worker program was not that great, and we had a lot of issues to settle. 2017, it got a little bit better. 18-19 has seemed to be the change around. My community, the Bay of Quinte riding, depends on the wineries on having agriculture workers come to our community. And 18-19 was smooth, and 20, fortunately, has been good for us so far. And the office hasn't had a lot of streamlining or a lot of complaints with the program this year. So we've been fortunate. Can you tell me what you've done in the last 4 years to improve the program, and why has it been better?
First, thanks very much, Mr. Ellis, and it's good to see you. And I recall with fondness my visit to your riding and to our visit to CFB Trenton. And with regards to the progress that we've made on the temporary foreign worker program, that's certainly not the product only of my time in this portfolio. This is the value of having a government that believes in leveraging the skills and the experience of workers who are coming from abroad to help shore up the food supply chain, who are truly here to help us keep affordable food, healthy and safe food on the plates of Canadians. And the way in which we have seen progress is by investing in this program, by standing up the teams that ensure that we are fast-tracking approvals of the permits, particularly now during COVID-19, by introducing a number of standards in place to protect their health and safety while they're here. And as I've pointed out, by creating a way in which they can establish a permanent connection to Canada through the Agri-Food pilot. So these are all important initiatives, which is the product of our government and work that will continue, that will position us to recover very strongly after we're the other side of this curve in COVID-19.
Thank you. And just one more question, and you spoke about it on changing job permits and that you've switched this. I know it was very hard to do this before, and I'd wonder what the process was before and what the difference now is to change a work permit to move to another agriculture area.
Well, Mr. Ellis, as you likely know, this is a shared portfolio. So it really does involve a number of ministries to come together to open the pathway to allow a temporary worker to come to Canada. One is at IRCC, at my department, where we issue the visa, the travel document, but it also requires, in the vast majority of instances, a work permit, which is issued as a result of a labor market impact assessment issued by my colleague, Minister Qualtrough, and her department. And so the reason why we have both of these two departments who collaborate is to ensure that we are aligning the skills and experience from abroad with those parts of the economy where it's proven to be difficult to recruit domestic labor. And so the flexibility that we've introduced very recently is really, I think, a reflection that we need to find ways to fill those gaps even more effectively during COVID-19. That we don't necessarily have the luxury of waiting for the usual timelines to expire before somebody can start that new job. So this is, again, the product of a lot of consultation, a lot of feedback, which we've gotten from provinces and farmers and other leaders in the industry.
Thank you, and I'll flip to the chair now. I believe he has a question.
Thank you, and more of a statement. Being the only MP from New Brunswick, and also being a producer, and I just want to state that I don't have temporary foreign workers. But as most of you may know, New Brunswick has not allowed, the only province in Canada that has not allowed temporary foreign workers to come in. And I can tell you, like today, the Premier said that starting next Friday, but you can imagine it's another 14 days after next Friday. There's already been some damage. I've spoken to producers yesterday, as late as yesterday, and just for example, it's a disconnect between the farming community and the general public. That they think that anybody off the street can walk in and do the skills that's needed on the farm. These are highly skilled workers that you can absolutely not replace overnight. And one particular farmer was telling me that he's hired two, and one came in and he got him on the tractor and turned around and ripped the side of the service truck with the mower. So I just want to highlight the need to maybe try and connect more with the general public, that these are highly skilled workers and we definitely need them. We're already, again, some of the farmers experience some crop loss, some never see it. So I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know, Mr. Minister, if you want to comment on that, but it's really affected our producers, disadvantage to all the rest of Canada. Thank you. Mr. Minister, if you want to comment, I'll leave it to you.
I don't have much to add. I think you put it very eloquently, and just to say that it's a cautionary tale to stop and think before anyone jumps on a John Deere and thinks that they know what they're doing. But no, Mr. Chair, I echo the sentiments very much, and certainly it was my intention today to shine a light on the significant contribution of temporary foreign workers to really help educate Canadians that throughout this pandemic right now, we are very much dependent and reliant on these workers who are coming, who are planting, who are seeding, who are beginning to harvest. And this is work that they do year round. They work pretty much 365 days a year. Well, certainly farmers do. And as a result, we get access to good, healthy food. And we need food, and we could not do it without them. So thank you very much.
So on that, I'll thank you, Mr. Minister, we stretched your hour a little bit, but we really appreciate you coming here and having this conversation with all our MPs. And on that, we'll continue the second hours with the officials. We'll take a 5 minutes. So if you want to set your timer, 5 minutes, and we'll be right back. Again, thank you all, and we'll see you in 5. I will suspend for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
call the meeting back to order, and we'll complete. We'll start the questioning with the panel, and just you may want to ask. Just hang on. You may want to direct your question. And again, with us we have Marianne Campbell Jarvis, Assistant Deputy Minister, Louis Dumas, Acting Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Matt de Villiers, Director General, and Jonathan Wallace from the Department of Employment and Social Development. And we will continue our round. And now with the block, Madame Caroline Desbiens, 2 minutes et demie, 2.5 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Desbiens. Est-ce que Madame Desbiens est là?
Ms. Desbiens, are you on the line?
Just really.
Point of order. Go ahead. You want to stop the time? Go ahead, Mr. Barrow.
So are you just carrying on? You're not starting a new, like it's a second hour type of thing? We're just carrying on with what we had before?
Yeah, we're just carrying on. That's how we worked it out with the analysts or the clerks, that we just carry on, because there was only really one panel. Well, there was 2 panels, but I mean it was the same department. So we're just carrying on, and then we'll get back to the next. So we have 2.5 minutes for the bloc and the NDP, and then we'll start again with Conservative for 5 minutes. It'll all be 5-minute rounds after that. Is that
Thank
good?
you. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, Madame Desbiens, est-ce que vous êtes là?
Are you there?
So perhaps Monsieur Perron, est-ce...
Oui, Madame Desbiens, peut-être. Madame Desbiens pourra.
Maybe Madame Desbiens can use the other minutes for the block. So can you hear me, Mr. Chairman? Can you hear me well? Okay, great. So I will continue with the questions that I had before, and I would like to speak. Well, we spoke with the minister earlier, and he spoke about the automatic renewal. Well, maybe not automatic, but facilitated renewal of the work permits. But I had a refusal this morning that I heard about, which was based on the absence of a new EMT. And this is a case where the worker cannot go out of the country, but just wants to continue. And then could you require, I mean, when there is a renewal, how can you then justify that?
Allô?
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, I did not really hear your question. Could you repeat it? Could you repeat the question? Yes, I will repeat if you don't take this into account. So the idea with the minister earlier, I was speaking about the facilitation of work permit renewal, but this morning I received a case where somebody was refused the renewal of the permit, which he didn't have the EAMT that was presented at the same time, but they have to do the 2 requests at the same time. And so now we hear that the last 2 weeks we are going faster. It's taking place faster without having a new EAMT. I think it might be easier to do that.
Monsieur le Président, pour la question, certainement la question.
Thank you for your question. The question of work permits and the renewal process is definitely an important challenge for us. Maybe my colleague Louis, could you maybe present the renewal process to explain it a little bit better? Well, Ms. Campbell, I'm comfortable with the renewal process, but there are still some administrative or red tape that are not necessary And so the producer in question had to pay a certain amount for the 200 also penalty to reestablish the status, because the status had been withdrawn. So could we accept right now renewal of permits without having received the EMT was requested, and so that would prove that it already had received it?
Allô?
Allô, je m'excuse.
Yes, sorry. It's always a challenge with technology. I don't know the case that you are mentioning, Mr. Chair, but maybe Matt could add some more detail. Yes? Can you hear me? If it is the same employer and the same occupation, it is possible now to continue to work. So then we have to make sure that well, I have actually transferred the case this morning. Thank you. Mr. McGregor.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is related to some of the concerns I think our committee has heard from employers over the years. And, you know, even in their meetings with me privately, they've spoken about the possible creation of a trusted employer program. And this has been a long-standing thing. I'm just wondering, you know, some employers have sometimes decades-long relationship with their employees, but they have to go through the same application process over and over again. And many of the relationships between the employees and the employers are almost like family. I'm just wondering, as we look to the post-COVID recovery, is the department considering anything like that, a pilot program, or do you have any updates on what some employers have requested for getting this trusted employer status?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the question. We have indeed heard a lot actually about the trusted employer notion and the concept. And it is something that we, working with our colleagues at Employment and Social Development Canada, have considered. My colleague, Jonathan Wallace, is here from ESDC, and he could add some other additional details about the thinking and in that space. From our part, I would just add from immigration, refugee, citizenship perspective, we certainly want to be facilitative, and yet at the same time, we also want to ensure we know who is in the country and for what purpose.
And is anyone else adding anything to that, or is that it? No? Okay. I guess my final question is, you know, it's been estimated that for a successful 2020 growing season, we're going to need approximately 70,000 temporary foreign workers in Canada. Given where we're at now and the challenges we've got ahead, how confident are we that we can meet that requirement?
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the member, Mr. Chair, I think my colleague from ESDC would have been able to add more details to the previous question, so we could add that in a moment. With respect to the number of temporary foreign workers, we are certainly doing all that we can to support the process, and that is all the way across the continuum, working with countries abroad, whether it's Mexico and Guatemala in our missions abroad, to support efforts on the ground and in Mexico. We are looking at our processing here in Canada. We are doing the facilitation in the isolation measures as well. I'm sorry, is there an issue, Ms.
Yeah, so it's just, no, we're out of time, so I got to move on to the next. That's fine, that's fine. So now, thank you, Mr. McGregor, and now Mr. Soroka for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Soroka.
Okay, actually, I think Ms. Rood was going to be taking the questions right now. She has some temporary foreign workers. Ms. Rood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, seed corn growers in Ontario are having a difficult time this year finding enough labor domestically, in part due to the Canada Emergency Student Benefit acting as a disincentive to work. And corn growers aren't able to use TFWs because their commodity is not on the national commodity list. So I'm just wondering, they've requested that seed corn be added to the national commodity list. Is this being looked into, and is this something that the government supports?
Was it anyone in particular, Ms. Rood or Ms. Jarvis? Ms. Jarvis, you want to answer that question?
Sorry, I was unable to mute the microphone fast enough, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that's a question that I will have to look into and follow up on. I'm not familiar with the state of where we're at in terms of additions to the commodity list.
Thank you. If you could get back to the committee on that, that would be great. I'm going to switch over. My understanding is that there is an Agri-Food immigration pilot program that, and there is currently no nomination or certificate of acceptance as part of the process, which is needed for all other immigration permanent residents. Stakeholders have been requested that this be added so that workers can receive a certificate from the Agri-Food immigration pilot and that it can be sent to the FWP. The reason for this is because otherwise farmer workers and butchers would all have to have LMIA renewals while they are in the pilot process, making it redundant, but more importantly, it's time consuming and confusing and expensive for IRCC, ESDC, and the employer. The other issue is that butchers will not come out of the CAP calculation for meat processing employers on the TFWP side unless there's a certificate. So why is there no nomination or certificate of acceptance as part of the Agri-Food immigration pilot project? And was this an oversight, and will it be remediated to follow either the express entry or the provincial nominee program as the model for the nomination certificate process?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. I'm wondering if my colleague Matt DeVlieger can answer some of the details there, please.
Yeah, absolutely. The Agri-Food immigration pilot is a new program just stood up last week for permanent residency. Unlike provincial nominee programs, there isn't a provincial role in terms of a nomination step. That's the role that nomination certificate plays there. In the agriculture Agri-Food immigration pilot, it is the applicant themselves, the worker who has that year of work experience of full-time non-seasonal employment that puts in the application, and then the notice that is required happens as part of the immigration process. So once they get their final decision and they're through their application for permanent residence and then their confirmation of permanent residence, all of those documents are part of the process like every other program. I think the member might be referring a little bit to the interplay with the CAP in terms of once an employer has a worker on their farm or in their meat production facility, I think we've heard from stakeholders that they would like to then have an additional position within the temporary foreign worker program. And I know that that's something that my colleagues from Employment and Social Development Canada are looking into.
Ms. Rood, could you just bring your mic a little bit closer? Apparently there's a little problem with them hearing.
Sure. Is that better?
Is that good? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Rood.
Sure. Just still continuing on here, due to COVID-19, the applicants can't be expected to have their relatives stand in line at the village high schools and institutions in the city to get what's needed. And the education assessment company has unopened envelopes. And this assessment company cannot access these unopened envelopes because their staff is self-isolating as per instructions. So many workers have their high school certificates with them. So would IRCC approve adjusting the authentication process required required by the assessment company. I understand that it would only require a change in wording and read assessment based on documents submitted by applicant. If IRCC would accept the definition, then workers would be able to proceed this year if they have their documents and cannot get them from their institutions, uploading them to the education assessment company's website. And then the other option would be to waive the assessment process this year. So is IRCC considering either option in light of the challenges of the COVID pandemic as presented?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Perhaps just to speak a little bit about the educational aspects. One of the points that I think is important to note is that with these pilots and bringing in people to the country, we actually want to position them for success. And we want to ensure that people are able to establish and settle here. And so that is part of the rationale and the thinking behind maintaining the educational requirements. In terms of the processing and facilitating, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so we're actually out of time, so we'll have to move on, but perhaps you'll have a chance to answer it later on. Mr. Blois for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Blois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for your participation today in the committee. I want to start just giving a little bit of context. In my riding of King Sance, we have an important agricultural sector that's the underpinning of the local economy. And really, the minister alluded to it, but perhaps maybe Louis, as I understand you're the director of operations within the department, from my understanding, we as a government have basically put most barriers or any barriers at all out of the way. And in terms of bringing the workers in, we are seeing challenges in some of the origin countries of origin where these workers are coming from. Can you explain some of the challenges in countries such as Mexico, Guatemala, others that you're seeing in terms of the actual logistics of just getting these workers into the country?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this interesting question. Indeed, there are some major impediments in certain countries. In Mexico, for example, where we have a big processing center for Central America and South America. Just the fact that, we have to deal with the Ministry of Labor in Mexico, and they are facing their own challenges. They are working on with reduced staff, for example. So that has been quite demanding on our teams, and I have to salute our teams, for the efforts that they've made to find resolutions in that relationship. And also the minister has spoken a little bit about the visitor application centers, which is a crucial part of the equation when you work overseas, that they receive applications. And because the visitor application center, the VAC as we call them, has been closed for a number of weeks now, it has been a real challenge, to process. Nonetheless, we've been able to move a high number of people, from Mexico, Guatemala to Canada. And so it has been at the cost of great efforts, but required, knowing the full well the reality here in Canada.
I appreciate that insight. I know in speaking with my farmers locally, as you've really alluded to, the fact that we've tried to move mountains, at least domestically, and sometimes that's just the nature of a global pandemic. I think Ms. Rood mentioned 78% in the SOP program. I think those numbers are pretty strong, all things considered. It was discussed in the committee, but I think for the benefit of those that might be watching and those tuning in to our committee proceedings, perhaps Mr. Duma or to you, Ms. Jarvis, can you clarify that it's not the government of Canada that's actually bringing these workers here? It's actually organizations like Farms Canada or FARMS in Quebec and others that actually work with industry to get the workers here. I mean, sometimes it says, oh, well, we as a government, but really this is private industry bringing them in, and we're just creating the channels to make sure that it's processed. Correct?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I could take the question. Indeed, it's there's a role for IRCC overseas working in the embassy. I will use the example of Mexico again. So we're working very closely with recruiters, local recruiters, working very closely with the Ministry of Labor. But when work permits are authorized and issued, then it comes under the responsibility of the recruiters and the local the organizations to bring those individuals to Canada. We've been able as well, to waive certain requirements such as biometrics and work very closely with our colleagues at Canada Border Services Agency and collect those biometrics here in Canada. So it has been a good cooperation, and I would say, with the industry as well.
I appreciate that, and certainly we know the logistical challenges through travel at this point. My next question, quickly, is to Mr. Wallace on the economic and social development side. Ms. Rood talked about audits, and I know that would be under the purview of Service Canada, but she talked about kind of some of the social distancing rules, and my understanding is that is 100% determined by the provincial governments and their own public health authorities. Obviously, we set guidelines, but it's the provinces that actually have the ability to influence it. Is that correct, Mr. Wallace?
Hi there. Yes, so provinces do set their requirements. At the same time, at the federal level, the Minister of Immigration recently implemented regulatory amendments that set federal requirements as well. One of those requirements is that employers of temporary foreign workers abide by all provincial or territorial public health laws related to COVID-19. So that's one piece in particular. The regulations also have requirements for employers who provide accommodations to workers. For example, the workers who are in quarantine have to be housed separately from those who are not. In addition, any worker who gets sick or exhibits signs or symptoms of COVID-19 at any time must be isolated from other workers. So those are some of the federal ones.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you
and
to
thank
my
you, Mr.
witnesses.
Blois. And now to Mr. Barlow. I don't know if that's the order you wanted, Mr. Barlow, or whoever you want to take the question. Go ahead.
Thanks,
You've got
Mr.
5
Chair.
minutes.
I may split my time, but yeah, thank you very much. And I just want to go back to this. We've had some discussion about the accurate numbers that are out there, and maybe the officials can give us some better insight. But when the minister was saying that it's around that 86% of the number of workers were expected to be here in April, but when we're talking with our stakeholders, the comments that we're getting is the government is using statistics that do not reflect the actual situation on the ground. For example, I think the minister mentioned today that in the month of April, Canada received about 10,000 workers compared to 13,000 in the year previously. At first glance, I think that would look fairly well with this current landscape when it comes to the situation we're facing. But we're hearing from our stakeholders and certainly from producers on the ground that the numbers that they're getting are not what those numbers are. That it's actually quite a bit lower. That they're using numbers that include the amount of workers that should have come or were in the process of coming but haven't arrived. So when we look at what I had mentioned with Ontario at a much higher number than Quebec at 50% and BC at only 54%. I'm wondering if the officials can tell us what is the accurate numbers that are there in terms of the workers who have arrived in Canada, and what is that outlook for May and June? There's not a lot of excitement to answer that question.
Oh, I apologize. I was on mute.
That's okay.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for the honorable member's question. Just to go over, some rough statistics, and we could provide, more defined statistics if required. Work permits for the month of March indeed was lower, approximately 3,000 less than the same period in 2019. And in April, it was roughly the same, a little lower, 11,000 to 13,000. So, we are tracking a little behind. However, rest assured, Mr. Chair, that folks overseas are doing every effort, to prioritize the seasonal agricultural worker applications.
Now, Mr. Duance, those numbers, when you say work permits, does that stipulate workers who actually have arrived in Canada, or is that just permits that have been approved?
Permits that have been confirmed, meaning that those are individuals that have arrived, who have arrived in Canada.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. I will share my time with Ms. Rood, who had some other questions as well.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give Ms. Campbell the opportunity to finish answering the question prior. And if you need me to ask that again, I can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think I recall most of the question. It was regarding what facilitation arrangements we're making to process, and you were also speaking about kind of the educational requirements for the pilot. In terms of some of the facilitation measures, we have undertaken quite a few measures to support the processing. I should actually probably turn to my colleague Louis to answer that part of the question, though.
Before you do that, I do have one quick question to add to that. So my question would be, is it true that if this issue isn't resolved, that no immigration can happen this year?
That no immigration can happen this year?
Under this program.
Oh,
with regard to this program.
Under the Agri-Food pilot. We may have difficulties with landings because of the travel ban, but there are actually already people here in Canada who would be able to apply and proceed. So people who are already here in Canada can now apply and use this pathway. It's the people from overseas that we would have more challenges just because of the COVID context and the travel ban.
Thank you. Mr. Wallace, my colleague, Mr. Boyce, was asking kind of along the same lines. I'm wondering if there was an attempt ever to have a streamlined federal guidelines for the quarantine measures that were to happen for temporary farm workers or seasonal agriculture workers arriving for their quarantine. Because here, I know it's under the provincial jurisdiction as far as the health guidelines, but was there ever an attempt?
So sorry, Ms. Rood, we're out of time. So maybe again you'll have a chance to Ms. Campbell might finish around your question. So now, Madame Bissette, Lynn Bissette, pour 5 minutes.
Madame Bissette for 5 minutes. I'm here. Can you hear me?
J'ai changé mes écouteurs, j'avais un problème, donc OK.
I changed my headset that was not working properly.
Est-ce que tout le monde comprend?
Can everybody hear the interpretation? Yes? Can everybody hear the interpretation? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like many farmers having to use foreign temporary workers in my riding, I'm happy to see some easier processes related to paper. The administration is a bit easier and it allows us to bring people to work in a more rapid fashion. Could you tell us how it helps workers, and could we keep these simplifications in the future, or is it just temporary? If you'll allow me, Mr. Chair, I might be able to answer the first part of the honourable member's question, and maybe my colleagues could talk about what the future holds. When we're talking about paperwork, there's been great efforts to reduce everything that deals with the administrative process. We've tried to simplify it, streamline it. As an example, it starts in the foreign country. It has to start with some very serious discussions with the labor departments, with the visa application centers. So we need a good synergy. So we have to be very close to our global affairs colleagues. And I was talking earlier about biometrics. With border services, we were able to get biometrics at the point of entry, which is of great help. We've really focused on requests for farm workers so that they were a priority. So that is being done outside of the country, but also in Canada. We have specialized teams. At some point, we brought back some of our agents, officers who were working outside of the country for family or medical reasons, and they are working here in Canada. And in Canada, we've asked to accelerate the processing of the requests for farm workers, for agricultural workers. It also includes people who are already at an employer's place. Maybe they're at on Orleans Island. They could transfer in the fall to pick, instead of strawberries, they could pick apples. I would ask one of my colleagues to answer the rest as for what the future holds.
Oui, merci pour la question.
Yes, thank you for this question. The question was on the new policy that was announced last week on May 12th.
Is this a temporary measure? It is a temporary measure. It's a public policy that waives some of the current requirements under the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. The Immigration Refugee Protection Act, for any work permit, there has to be an application before you can get onto a new work permit. And so what this new policy does is it allows somebody to, if they found a new job, have that job offer. It's backed up by a labor market impact assessment. Because of the context we're in with COVID, because of the number of people impacted that might be laid off, might have had trouble finding new employment, if they've secured new employment, we're going to facilitate them getting into work as quickly as possible, so within 10 days. So that's a temporary measure. The Immigration Protection Act does want the full application processing to happen. So that's what we'd be looking at for the longer term, is making sure that all of those application steps do happen.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you foresee the impacts of this new process? Do you see if the impacts of this new process are being felt?
In the first week, so no trends. I understand that there are upwards of 300 applications in already. So that's people who have submitted their application for a work permit, as well as submitted the web form for this particular public policy to be able to be authorized to work within those 10-day period.
Merci. Concernant, j'ai encore un...
Thank you very much. Concerning the TFW, I know that there's quite a bit of difficulty in coordinating them sometimes. We also have some union people, a lot of people around the table. Which groups have been involved in the decision-making process? Ms. Bassett, I'm sorry, but perhaps there'll be opportunity to get an answer in another intervention. Mr. Perron, you have 2 minutes. Yes, Ms. Desbiens will take my turn because she gave me her turn earlier. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perron. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all, and thank you to the witnesses. I would like to tell them that we've been working closely with you to repatriate a number of people during this pandemic, and we appreciate the cooperation that we received from all sides. I can appreciate the complexity of the situation. COVID-19 not only caused a lot of drama and trauma, but it has forced us to take another look at some of our processes. Now, what else can we do to fast-track the system, to modify it, streamline it, to make it more effective and efficient, particularly TFW program? Thank you, through the chair, for the question. If you'll allow me a first observation, I know that we have to go towards a system which is much more digitally based. We're still too paper dependent. And as you can see, I'm sure you would agree, when we need access to certain files, of course, which sometimes are only available in paper form, but Yes, but I hope that the internet network, just on another track here, that the broadband would be available to everybody. If we're going to put more emphasis on it, we have to have high services. But how about open permit, closed permit, time limited or open-ended? Could we not maintain that sort of categorization? Like you said, strawberries in l'Île d'Orléans and apples or beans later on in the season. Well, I think that's more a policy issue. I don't want to venture into that territory. It might be Ms. Jarvis or my other colleague to answer that question. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I missed the question, except I came in at strawberries. Okay. In the sense that we're trying to make these permits and more flexible, that they can cross over from one employer to another employer, strawberries in early spring and apples later in the fall. Are you thinking of making these permanent changes? Well, we've established a number of measures, and my colleague described the situation with the pilot project and the possibility of transferring of permits. This latest initiative
in between allows people to start a new job, whether they're switching between employers or they've lost their job. And it's this kind of measure, whereas in the past, one had to wait for a new work permit before they could start, but now they can apply to the public policy and have an exemption and can begin to work while they're waiting for their work permit to process. So this kind of, oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to move on to the next one. And Mr. McGregor for two and a half minutes. Go ahead, Mr. McGregor.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. I guess what I wanted to ask our witnesses, we're running out of questions here, so I guess that's a good thing. But the funding announcement that was made with the $50 million that's allocated to help employers with the costs of putting their workers into the 14-day isolation period, I believe each employer is entitled to get $1,500 per worker. Can you just maybe provide the committee with an update on, you know, how the budgeting for that particular program is going, how much of the funding has been used, and is it look like it's going to be an adequate amount going forward in the weeks and months ahead?
Mr. Chair, that initiative is led by my colleagues at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. We are familiar with the initiative, but as to the specific questions about the budgeting, would probably be best directed to them. I am aware, though, because we are in close collaboration with our colleagues at Agriculture and other departments on these issues, that they have received several hundred applications already, and it's well underway. To support. It's also structured in a way that allows the department to work with provinces and territories or employers directly. So there is some flexibility that's there.
Great, and then maybe as a final question, I know that other governments have been having their own troubles with COVID-19. In terms of like when we're trying to get temporary foreign workers over to Canada, what are some of the main bottlenecks we're experiencing? Is it with the availability of commercial flights? Is it still some delays in processing in host countries and so on? Any quick words you can offer towards that? Thank you.
Merci, Mr. Président. Thank you, Chair, for this question. I think the member explains it well. I mean, the scarcity of air connections, for example, makes it very difficult the having to have conversation with ministries of labor overseas, and they are operating at with reduced staff. That's also very complicated. I've alluded to the fact, and the minister as well, mentioned the relationship with the visitor application centers, which are crucial to our equation, and it's a harsh reality, not only here in Canada but overseas. And again, the folks in the embassies, High Commission, Consulate overseas are trying their best, to find solutions, and I have to salute them.
Thank you. And so that wraps up our panel for today. I really want to thank from the Citizenship and Immigration, Marion Campbell-Jarvis, Louis Dumas, Matt Villiers, and also Jonathan Wallace for taking the time to be with us today. And with that, we will terminate the question round, and I'll ask the members to stay on for a bit of business to conclude before we move to the next meeting next week. So thank the panel, and we'll start our business section. So just for, we had a conversation to try and guide us as to how we're going to have the coming meetings, how everything's going to unfold. And sticking with the themes, we have chicken and eggs, we have grains, we have the meat processing. And maybe I'll let somebody that was on the call today to
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Mr. Blois.
I'd like to, just en français, just un second. Je voudrais proposer
I'd like to move a motion that I think will support the work of the committee. And here goes. That in regards to Canada's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, that the chair, in consultation with the clerks and analysts, assemble witness panels for the upcoming meetings of the committee. Secondly, that insofar as possible, these panels be composed of witnesses proposed by the recognized parties in the following areas: poultry and eggs, and grains and cereals, and meat processing. Furthermore, that in the eventuality that the committee is authorized to sit beyond Friday the 29th of May, 2020, the committee agrees to hear witnesses from the following sectors: SMEs, small agricultural holdings, apiculture and horse raising, as well as local processing capacity. And finally, that the parties, the recognized political parties, submit their list of proposed witnesses for the last 4 panels to the clerk by electronic means no later than Wednesday, the 27th of May. Now, I hope my French prof is listening in. Thank you. Very good, Mr. Lewis. That was very good. Mr. Perron? Well, I don't know about your French professor, but I'm telling you, from the blog's point of view, we're very proud of what you've just done. Now, very informally, there's no surprises there, I don't think, but I would like to add perhaps to this motion that we'll try to complete all the rounds of questioning for the witnesses as they had been set. Now, the last 2 rounds were not done with the minister present, unfortunately. But perhaps we could have included him that way as a general principle, if the minister has the time, of course. We're not looking for, military precision and all that, but a general principle. I understand fully, Mr. Perron. We could have requested the minister to stay later today because we didn't have different themes and topics involved. It was all one piece. We could have requested or invited the minister to stay for another 5 minutes to complete at least that round. when we have different panels, very often it's a different theme, and you win on one side, you'll lose on the other. So, but I agree with your comment in principle. I do understand your concern, and perhaps I should have this. No, it wasn't a criticism I'm making of you, Mr. Chair. Not at all. I think you're doing very well in your position as chair. No recriminations whatsoever. But the principle, it's a principle, that's all, an underlying principle. I don't know if we can add, because otherwise, as we're talking about the COVID, actually we can arrange that. I think it goes a bit beyond our mandate, but I'm quite flexible. The committee is always master of its rules. If you give me permission to extend or whatever. But we'll always be in that same dilemma if we have back-to-back panels. Today, we could have done it, we should have done it perhaps, and that was perhaps my oversight. With two panels, if one wins, the other loses. But I do appreciate your comments, and remind me on the go in another future meeting. Very good, thank you. Otherwise, would everyone agree to accept the motion that we have Mr. Blois has just presented? In agreement with the motion?
Concern with the motion. I don't know if we need a motion to do this necessarily, but I don't want to have a limit on or specificity on the witnesses that we invite. And I know in Mr. Blois's motion, he specifically said in the future we will have, equine and all. I don't think we need to have a specific limits on the witnesses that we'll invite into the future. We don't know how long this committee will go. I would just suggest as a friendly amendment that that this committee work to invite any witnesses that we want to invite are due on Wednesday, May 27th for the next the next round. But I don't see any reason why we have to specify which witnesses or which sectors of the industry that we will be inviting, because I don't think we know that right at this moment.
But do you want, in other words, we wouldn't follow, well, these are, I don't know if these are specific themes, but maybe I'll ask Mr. Blois to, you want to comment on your motion, Mr. Blois?
Well, we had a conversation obviously before this committee here today about those subjects. So, obviously it was in French, but again, I think the focus would be those are certain subjects that we had all agreed on that we think would be beneficial to touch upon. Whether or not it read in French so specific that it absolutely made that we had to do it, I'd be happy to accept Mr. Barlow's motion that it's not guaranteed, but that in the spirit of those subjects, we're asking the analysts and to you, Mr. Chair, to move forward on that basis, assuming once we have more details on Monday about whether or not this committee is going to get extended. John, is that kind of where your head was at on
it? Yeah, I guess more or less. But quoting our discussion this afternoon or this morning, we were just throwing stuff out there, things that we could invite in the future. I didn't expect that to be anything specific in a motion. And I honestly, I don't think we needed a motion for this at all. I think we could just agree to continue on the committee and then continue to invite witnesses. But I see Leanne has a comment as well, so I'll let Leanne chime in there.
Ms. Rood?
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if this is outside of the scope of what we're able to do right now of our committee's power at the moment with what's going on with COVID in our scope right now.
So for witnesses, it's within our scope to move motions. We're allowed. That's the only motion we can move. Is about.
But I mean, we don't know what's happening on Monday and what's going forward at this point yet until then.
Yeah, I agree. But the only why we've kind of added that on is because we need to know what our last meeting we were short on witnesses, so we had to. And I think the discussion was that we could maybe if it goes forward to give the analysts and them a chance to call those witnesses and organize a meeting. We've added some other themes that we may explore as we go on. But again, you're right that we don't have right now, we don't know whether there'll be more meetings or not. And to John's point that, we don't want to, I guess, corner ourselves in those themes. And we are the master of our, who we want to see and question. So, we can, like you say, we probably need a motion to set the witnesses. I think it's prudent to have a motion, but Mr. Barlow and Mr. Blois, if you want to find a common path there that we can maybe put into that motion, it would be great, and it would help the analysts to move forward and setting up the other meetings.
Mr. Chair, do we have like a record right now? Could I just read something into the record and see if it would appease Mr. Barlow in terms of?
You can modify the motion that was said if you can find like I said, a common path. That's what we're here for. So go ahead.
Basically, my motion would be that as we move forward in this committee, and given the fact that there's some uncertainty as to whether or not the committee will continue, if this committee finds out that it is going to be extended beyond May 29th, which is our last scheduled meeting, that the chair of the committee, in consultation with the analysts and the clerk, would be willing to line up witnesses or have witnesses available in the following commodity groups for subsequent meetings, not limiting to this, but certainly making sure that witnesses are available on these particular subjects, which would be chicken and eggs, grain sector, the meat processing sector, and also following May 29th, if we are afforded that opportunity, witnesses around small farms and smaller agri-food businesses, apiculture, horse industry and equine, and perhaps witnesses that could speak to the ability for manufacturing in the regions, food manufacturing in the regions. John, is that neutral enough in the sense that, again, I think we just need to provide some level of certainty that the clerks, if Monday, they can go about their business, I think was the only intention, not to limit it in any way.
Mr. Barlow?
Yeah, thanks, Cody. I just think we're really overcomplicating this. If you want to put a motion forward that we ask the chicken, poultry, meat processors, the ones that we kind of agreed on for next week, I'm fine with that. And then if we get extended on Monday, we can have this discussion again next week on how much, what other themes we're going to discuss moving forward. I don't think we need to dive this deep into it right now, when none of us have had an opportunity to give it some thought on who else we would want to invite. I would just say, to keep it simple, if you want to have a motion to say that these are the 4 witness groups or 4 groups that we want to have for next week, I'm fine with that. And then let's revisit this when we know what's happening after Monday.
Perhaps I could bring in the clerk here if logistically, do we need to be more specific and why? Monsieur Marc-Olivier, est-ce que vous voulez?
Marc-Olivier, do you have any comments that you would like to make? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand the point made by Mr. Barlow. I think that the most important thing for the time being is to give clear indications for the last meeting on the agenda, so on Friday, May 29th. And since the committee will be meeting on the 27th of May, well, it will depend on decisions taken in the House on Monday, May 25th. If the committee wishes to do so, it can speak of the witnesses it wishes to invite to testify if the House decides to prolong the works of the committee. If the committee cannot meet beyond May 29th, then we won't have to discuss this and future witnesses. And so should we wait for Monday? Should we wait for Monday so that we can be more specific in determining themes? Yes, that would, if we would have a week before inviting witnesses for meetings that will take place beyond May 29th, that would be satisfactory for me.
Now, with that information, can we find
Yeah, and just to try to help the clerk, that was the only reason this motion was coming forward. So as we discussed in our informal conversation outside this committee, I would move that on Friday, May 29th, the panel consist and we work, and the clerks, along with the analysts and the chair, work to have representatives from the chicken and the egg sector, along with grains and meat processing.
Mr. Barlow, does that work for you?
That works for me. Much simpler. That's kind of what we agreed on. And just as an aside, Chair, maybe the clerk can answer this. Like, are we running out of witnesses? That I know we all submitted some. Like, is that the problem here that we're also discussing, that we're running through the witness list?
Allez-y, Monsieur Girard, est-ce que vous voulez répondre à la question? Monsieur...
Non, effectivement.
No, we have enough witnesses. Witnesses that were suggested by the recognized parties. On May 29th, there's the representative of the poultry and egg sector, the grain sector, and the meat processing sector. So we're all set for the May 29th meeting.
Not for the meetings that are already set up until Friday. I guess we're good to witness. Anything beyond that, we would need to bring more witnesses, and we can. I mean, if that's the wish of the committee, we can certainly wait until we know, and then set a deadline to some of the witnesses.
Yeah. So Cody, to me, that we've already got next Wednesday and Friday set, so I don't think we need to worry about this until Monday. Till after we know what's
fair enough. Was working with the clerk to make sure that they had the information based on what we talked about, but we can talk about it Monday, to your point.
Okay, so we all good with that? I see some head nods. Okay, so we'll leave that until we know further if we're going to go forward. So we shall see you next. Is it next Wednesday?
J'avais une question en terminant.
Oui, monsieur.
A question in closing. Just a comment that I'd like to make. If we adopt a motion, I would like to add what I spoke of earlier. But beyond that, should the committee ask the House of Commons to prolong its sitting or prolong this? I think all members would like us to pursue our work.
Whip?
I think that we can talk to the whip, because in the end, they're the ones that will be giving us guidelines and telling us how we will go forward. So I would encourage you to communicate with your party whip to tell them that you have not finished your work and you would like to continue and pursue your work. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, tout le monde.
Meeting is now adjourned.